Hello again, everyone. This is Mr. Petrie, and we are converting between fractions, decimals, and percentages. We've looked at 3 different examples, and I know if you watched video 3, I told you I would show you 2 different ways that you can convert a fraction into a decimal, and I realized I did only show you one. However, I'm going to take a second to go back and show you that because it really connects to how we would convert 1/3, our example 4, from a fraction into a decimal. So if you recall, when we were converting 7/20ths, we used equivalent fractions. I used hundredths, so I converted 7/20ths to 35 hundredths in order to then change that into the decimal form, 0.35 or 35 hundredths. There is another way that we can do it. And that way is by doing what's written right here, 7/20. This line, if we remember that it is divided into 20 pieces. So this 7 is divided into 20 pieces. And if we just do that division, we will get our answer. So let's see. So if we set that up, we're actually going to divide 7 by 20. So we set up our equation. Well, we know that 20 can't go into 7. But I also know that there is a decimal point here and zeros that follow, as many zeros as I might need. So I don't have any holes. And if I follow my decimal point up, I can write that in, and that way I don't get confused as to where the decimal point goes later on. So now I can think, how many times does 20 go into 70? Well, if I know my multiplication facts and I know how many times 2 goes into 7, I know that the answer is 3. 3 times 20 is 60. I subtract. I've got 10 left over. I bring down my 0 to have 100. And now I think, how many times does 20 go into 100? The answer is 5. 5 times 20 is 100. And as soon as I have a remainder of 0, I know I can stop right there. And if we compare those answers, doesn't matter which way I do it, my answer remains the same. And that's really important when we look at number 4, because number 4, if we think about it, I said if I was going to use fractions, 1/3, I want to get a fraction with a tenth or a hundredth or 1,000. And in this case, I can't multiply 3 by any number in order to make it equal to 10 or 100 or 1,000. So I can't use my strategy of finding an equivalent fraction for this particular problem. So I'm forced to divide. And again, I'm going to divide by 1 by 3. Let's set up my equation. I put my decimal point in because I know 3 can't go into 1 evenly, but 3 can go into 10. It can go in 3 times. And 3 times 3 is 9. So I subtract, and I have 1 left over. Oh, I'm going to bring another 0 down. And I get 10 again. 3 goes into 10 3 times. And 3 times 3 is 9. And I subtract, and I have 1. And you'll notice that you could do this over and over and over and over and over and over again. So at one point, you have to ask yourself, do I keep going, or is this a good place to stop? And then you're going to use your rounding strategies in order to determine how many decimal places do you need. So in this particular case, my decimal is 0.333, and it would go on for forever. So your decimal answer, 0.33. I'll add 1 more. And you know that if you are rounding, the next digit would be a 3 as well, but you could round that down to 0 and you could stop right there. And later on, you're going to find that you can actually put a line over this that indicates that that number, those sets of numbers will repeat over and over and over again. All right, so now that we have our decimal number, how do we convert that into a percentage? Well, if I have my decimal 0.333, we know that we're multiplying by 100, and this gives me an answer of 33.3%. So that's how we can convert fractions, decimals, and percentages. Ideally, you will recognize some of those fractions are benchmark fractions, a half, a quarter, an eighth, any of those ones that we use anytime we're using fifths, anytime we're using, tenths, anytime we're using those numbers and translate them directly into decimals. But if not, you can always divide the numerator by the denominator in order to get a decimal. Thanks for listening.